So when I summarised E3 this year, it may have taken a little while. So since Gamescom's happened this week, here's a very brief summary. Got all that? Great. So, we've had loads of great games come out this year. Bloodborne, The Witcher 3... 2 great games! Okay, that's a bit unfair. Rocket League is fantastic. Evolve was fun for a while, as was Dying Light. But for the few gems that we've had, we've also had an Order 1886, or Raven's Cry, or Godzilla. So let's have a look back at some of the absolute garbage that we've had in the first half of this year, and what you should really avoid going back and playing at all costs. Wait a minute, we haven't done the intro yet. Right, back to the rubbish. Let's start with a fairly obvious one. Billed as a steampunk look at Victorian London, the Order 1886 certainly showed some promise. Beautiful graphics, gorgeous set pieces, and fights with wolves all seem to lead towards a great game. However, what we ended up with was, essentially, a 6-hour movie with occasional QuickTime events. The movement was extremely limited, the combat was generally tedious, and at times you had virtually no input on the game at all. There were fights with wolves though. One wolf fight. It's the ultimate example of game developers forgetting what medium they're meant to be telling their story on. Games just aren't films, and trying to make games like films just doesn't work. End of. Look, I'm not a massive fan of JRPGs and the Japanese gaming scene in general, but quite honestly, this is just ridiculous. I mean, on the surface, it looks like it could be a good game. Visceral, pacey combat, giant monsters, beautiful worlds. It could be an interesting alternative to Dynasty Warriors. But I mean, well, look at it. I mean, how is this acceptable? Like, seriously, Japan, what the hell are you playing at? Sid Meier has an almost impeccable record of making excellent games. From the Civilization series, through games such as Pirates and Railroads, to the massively underrated Sim Golf, his reputation really does precede him. However, following on from the excellent Civilization After Earth, this knockoff of some of the features not used in that game just isn't worthy of his name. Dull, shallow, and just ultimately not much fun to play, this really isn't one of his better days. Arguably the biggest mess of all on this list, this absolute turd of a game hits every wrong box you can imagine. Terrible, unintuitive combat, poor design, awful controls, absolutely full of bugs and issues, horrendous story, and genuinely offensive writing. This is a pathetic excuse for a game. I actually find it genuinely upsetting. Raven's Cry? More like Gamer's Cry.
Sunshine, lollipops and rainbows, everything that's wonderful is what I feel when we're together.
From the coverage Hatred got from the mainstream press, you'd have thought it was the new Grand Theft Auto. When the first press release came out, including the initial trailer for the game, mainstream press couldn't wait to get their hands on it and call foul the horrendous nature of its gameplay, and therefore the games industry more generally. To be fair, it's hard to argue with.
My whole life is just cold, bitter hatred. And I always wanted to die violently. This is the time of vengeance, and no life is worth saving. And I will put in the grave as many as I can.
Quite whatever you think of violence in video games, you can't argue it doesn't work as a source of publicity. Everyone suddenly knew about Hatred, and everyone wanted to play it. It's almost a shame it was such a crock when they finally did. I mean, for a game with so much attention, it's almost amazing how genuinely dull it is. Or is it a relief? I'm not really sure, to be honest. Anyway, yeah, don't play it. Not for any sense of moral judgment, just because it's rubbish. Okay, why the hell is this on this list? I might hear you ask. Well, consider this as more of a representation for a larger trend in gaming currently, one that deserves to be mentioned here. For you see, Arkham Knight wasn't a bad game at all. In fact, at times it was very good, aside from the Batmobile bollocks that ruin the pacing like Sonic at a funeral. But the reason I include it on this list is because of its PC release. Arkham Knight released on Steam with a whole host of problems. Collapses in frame rate, graphical depreciations, and bugs and crashes all over the place made it basically unplayable. This isn't some small indie developer releasing their game before it's ready. This is a AAA publisher. It's a shameful disregard for the people who made and will play the game, and it's not just an isolated incident either. F1 2015 and WWE 2K15 also demonstrate how callously some publishers consider their PC gaming audience. I mean, it's simply unacceptable.
He did the mash.
He did the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard smash.
But the worst of the bunch by quite some distance is this pitiful attempt to cash in on a franchise that was relevant in the 1990s. The idea of a Godzilla game has always seemed appealing. Roaming around as a giant monster tearing cities apart is an incredibly appealing prospect, and quite honestly one that's never been done properly before. But having said that, it's never been done this badly before either. Right, imagine a man being given a mascot suit and being asked to run around the side of a football pitch before a big game, waving to the crowd, fighting with the other mascots, and generally acting stupid. Now add terrible controls, dull and poorly executed gameplay, laughable graphics and story design, and a whole host of other problems games in the 90s never had, and you have Godzilla. An absolute joke of a game, and one that sums up perfectly the year of garbage that we've had so far. Now this is obviously not a definitive list, and you can add your own suggestions in the comments box below. Oh, and in order to send them, you need to click the like and subscribe buttons as well. And you need to download the Plastic Scousers podcast, which you can do for free at the link below. You need to do all of that in order to make your opinion count. So it's probably worth doing. Oh, actually, one more thing.
You might think that disappearing is easy, but it doesn't matter how fast you run, or how far, or what you're willing to do along the way. We're creatures of habit. We follow a path and invite others to follow behind us. Footprints aren't only left in mud. It might be the lure of your old life, loneliness, or knowing that we are always one step behind. But at the end of the day, people will always come up for air. It doesn't matter who you are or what you think, we'll find you.
14 ordinary people on the run from a team of expert hunters. The real-life thriller, Hunted, coming soon to 4.